Hey guys, this is Sean McGarry coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the music salon where great things happen. Man, I hope everyone's doing great out there. Got a fun little lesson today we'll get into here in just a second. Couple quick things I want to talk about here real quick. Promotion for my business, the music salon. If you are in the Cincinnati, Kentucky, Indiana area, I have something cool that we put on every year. Me and a buddy of mine, Billy McCarthy, who's an amazing drummer here in the Cincinnati area with the Billy Rock Band. And we do something called Camp Rockstar, which is our version of the thing they do out in LA, but it's We're the Stars. So it's kind of in all seriousness though, it's a rock camp for adults. So, and it's different from like the School of Rock, and I'm not knocking them because they got their own thing and it's awesome. But basically we have adults coming to this program, and it's 8 weeks I believe this year, and you rehearse once or twice a week depending on the week, and we basically train you to be in a band. We don't pick the songs or like it's a 90s show or anything. Like, you guys come in, you pick a name, you pick an identity, you pick your song list. But he and I help you. We've both been doing this since the dinosaurs were around, so we know how to get bands up and running. And we basically coach you guys, and it's finalized by a big show in April. So if there's anybody in this area that's interested, just check it out. I want to throw it out there. And of course, the Guthrie Trap Clinic is coming up March 21st and 22nd. We still have a couple spots left, man. We had a bunch of people back out for whatever reason. They were traveling in. I had a guy from Ireland that unfortunately had some issues come up. So it's really cool, man. It's a great opportunity, and I know I'm promoting it a lot on here, but that's what I do. So let's jump into today's lesson here and talk about, something that kind of, I think it's overlooked a lot, is the major scale and how to phrase and make things musical using the major scale. So I come from the school, which I think a lot of people do from conversations of like, especially if you're a rock guy, at a certain age group, you kind of learn the minor pentatonic, and here you go, kid. Oh, you're off to the races. So, which is cool, and I think we learn that because it's so accessible, right? Everybody knows that pattern, but sometimes it's hard to break away from that. And really, if there's no major scale, there's no minor, there's no nothing. That's the end all to be all. So let's just make sure of a couple things here that we know the major scale patterns. Okay, so I think I was playing over a little, or I know what I was playing over. I was playing a little backing track. It was like in D major, and I was playing D major to B minor, which is called the minor 6, to G, and back to D. Okay, so I was playing something like, kind of groovy, sounding right. So again, the sound, we're in a key of D major, so we want to play, to start off with, we want to play the D major scale. Okay, so here's position, I'm not going to call it position 1, but like off this chord, okay? And this is another thing, man. I never learned like all the boxes and shapes. Like, I have my own style of teaching. Like, somebody says, that's box position 3 of the such and such scale. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. So I have my way of playing it. I know that I can play every scale up and down a neck in 20 positions. So I have my own system, whether it's the book system or not, I don't know, but here's a position off the A string. I just call this a movable major scale off the A string. And again, always goes back to the bar chords. So look, if I play this bar chord here, my root A bar, major bar chord. Well, there's my root, and I'm just going to play. You know, and hopefully you guys know this, man. I'm not going to go spend too long on this, but like, so here's position 1. Okay, now if I go up to this chord, you know, of the root E bar chord, well, there's, you know, another position, and I'm going to play from this note that I'm touching of the chord. That's 1 octave. Well, it's real easy here because there's no shifting going on. You just go. And you know, I'll get to like the B string, and you have to move things around in a bit. But so at least start with those couple positions of scales. Okay, and that'll get you started. So watch this. I'm going to play this track again here, this little loop here, and I'm just going to play the scales, nothing fancy. Sounds pretty good, right? I'll go up here. So you can hear that all those notes work over that. And you know, the first thing I tell anybody is when you're learning this stuff, if you don't know it, is get a backing track or a loop and play over it. You know, I remember years ago, man, I was teaching like 20 some years ago at the store, and I bought this book called Scales Over Chords or something. It had the CD in it, and it was just all these, and I would work on it with myself and my students. It was just chord progressions, and you would just play the scales up and down. And it would, you know, in hindsight, it was pretty, it was a good learning tool. You know, the only thing I wish I would have learned earlier on was like how to make it a little more musical out of the gate, but that's really step 1. So don't get caught up in too much of that. Like, you know, spend some time camping out on that, and then we'll get into this next phase of how to make it musical, so it's not just a boring exercise that you don't want to do anymore. Okay, so we've got the major scale. Now, how do we make that musical? Well, there's a couple things we can do. We can target notes. We can talk about phrasing. We'll get into all that. But also, too, is like think about the surrounding scales we can play, too. So we can also play the major pentatonic. And, you know, the best way to describe a major pentatonic is like you just take out 2 notes of the major scale. You take out 4 and 7. So if this is... Take out the 4th note, and you go... Okay, pretty easy pattern, but mostly you see, you know, people play it like this, where you kind of move up the neck. You go like this, like so. Here I'm going, and this is great because it's, look at this, 1st and 3rd finger. You're literally just sliding this up, so it's really one of the easiest, like to kind of grasp scales you can do if you don't know it. When you go up like this, well, look. Your finger is literally going to fall on that note. And I watch people stumble at this. I'm like, man, you're on top of it. It's a snake that's going to bite you. Look. And don't fumble around. Look. Trust your instinct. It's going to fall right on that note. And there's some, you know, I want to talk about this real quick before I even finish the scale. When we go up and down, we might use different fingers coming back than we did up. So I might go... slide that 1st finger coming back, you know. But sometimes not. It depends, so keep that in mind too. Now, let's finish the scale. Well, look at this. I walked into the octave of this, so backtrack, check this out. Here was that position. I'm going to end up on the same note, but I'm going to go... Now, I know this is pretty basic for some of you guys, but hang with me because gotta please everybody, man. So check this out. Now I'm gonna go next scale or next octave. Now here's the, you know, the B string always screws people up, man, because you have to shift everything up 1 string. So now I'm gonna go right here. You know, I could go, and sometimes I'll do that if I'm playing a lick like that. It depends on what you're playing, so there's no set rule. But for this particular example, let's not do that, and let's go. Uncomfortable just for a second. Look, you got to make the face. Now you're back in your safe zone, and it's just keep sliding, or stop there if you want. So all together, check it out. And this is 2 octaves, so I go. Okay, so that's the major pentatonic. So now I've got major scale, got minor scale, and then it's still morning time here in Cincinnati, so I'm gonna have a little coffee. Now we want to talk about that the minor. So we can use the minor pentatonic over this. It's called the relative minor, and when I was playing that chord progression, I was playing the second chord was B minor. Now what that is, that's the 6th note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a B note. Make that note into a chord, and it's always a minor chord. Make it a minor chord. It's called the relative minor, which that means we can play that chord, whatever it is, in this case B minor, play the minor pentatonic of that chord. It's called the 6th minor. So now I can play. Now here's where the fun happens, because you kind of you intercede with each other. You get caught in this like little intersection here of notes, right? So if you look at this is the minor pentatonic. Well, here's the major pentatonic. Look, I start here. Voila! As soon as I hit that note, look, I'm inside the homeland of the minor pentatonic, right? So if I go, now I'm in that box. So we could always think of that as like our safe zone, the minor pentatonic, until you get comfortable moving around. So now, let's see here. What are we going to talk about? Oh, phrasing. So, there's a million things we can do, but like one little idea is landing on a root note. That's really a safe bet. That's kind of like a good place to start. So what you want to do is whenever you're improvising or soloing, know the notes. You got to know the notes. And I didn't for many years. I knew the scales and some riffs and stuff. I didn't even know the notes on a fretboard. I knew the first 2 strings and that was it. And I just trusted my instincts and prayed a lot, right? And hope you land on the right note. But you don't need to do that. Just find the root note. So here's a D, here's a D, here's a D, right? So if I just find, and I use these scales I just talked about, just try and land on the notes. Now, when it switches chords, we'll get to that later because you can land on those notes. But this is just to get started, so check it out. There's my D note right there, check it out. I keep landing on that D note up down here. Up here. Right, so you really can't go wrong if you land on those notes. It's going to sound good. Let's do a little comparison shopping here. Watch if I don't do that. And it's not that it's wrong, it just doesn't sound right, if that makes sense. So maybe it is wrong, I don't know, but check it out. So I'm going to land on a note that's not D. Not so good. Well, that wasn't so bad. And I'll talk about that in a second. So you kind of heard that just didn't sound great. So until you really know what you're doing, just land on a root note. And again, there's lots of exceptions to that rule. So, don't say, oh, it's not true, because I know it's not true, but I'm just giving you a guideline. So you can target other notes, like you hit the 5 or the 3rd, depending on what you're playing over. So let's hold off on that for now. Now, another thing is just these little sequences. There's a million little licks you can do. And probably everybody's heard this lick. Like, I call it the Jimmy Page lick. I don't know who did it first, but it's the... Guys like Eric Johnson and Joe Bonamassa have perfected that into a super fast, clean little thing. I think Bonamassa, I don't know, but like would do the 4th thing. I don't ever practice that, but so it's cool sounds. Now, I like sequences because you don't have to think about it. It's just something you have in your toolbox to pull out, and it's always going to sound good. So now let's look at a couple sequences. So if I play, and I'll show you that in a minute, I guess, just in case you don't know. But like if I'm in D major, right, just go up 3 notes from the root. Go 1, 2, 3. And by the way, it's just a triplet. You're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 up the scale. And it's always going to sound good if you have it rhythmically in time. So check it out. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, di, do. And I'm just going to play that in chunks of 3. You're just kind of dividing this up. So you're going 1, 2, 3. Go back a note and go 3 from that note. 1, 2, 3. Look, back a note, go up 3. Back a note, up 3. Back a note. All right, so over the music, that sounds pretty cool. Watch. Minor pentatonic. It just sounds good. That's all I can say. It's a nice little thing you can play. And then you want to practice that. We could spend a lot of time. I could spend hours on this today talking about like all the different positions of the scale that you should practice. And maybe I'll do that sometime. But like wherever you can play the major scale, do that. So I just showed you 2 positions. Now you can play it in many different ways. You can practice scales. I might go like this. Look, here's the D major. Go this way, go up, go vertically, horizontally, flip things upside down. You don't have to just do this. As guitar players, we get used to this, so watch. From your cage system, right? So find different ways to play the scale, or even like, instead of playing the major 3rd here, look, go. So just, anything you can do to break out of just normalcy when you're practicing. Okay, so that was the sequencing. Now here's a riff I stole off my buddy Guthrie, who's doing the clinic that I talk about. And by the way, I get, I've gotten so many, I've learned so much from him, man. I mean, I've taken private lessons from him. I watch his videos religiously. And there's a reason he's one of the best in the world. And, people might go, you're jocking him all the time. Well, too bad. I think he's one of my favorite players in the world. He's inspiring. So, and when you put it out there, you're giving it away, and I'm taking it, man, and I'm sharing it with you. So this is a riff that I got directly from him, and it was a really wonderful exercise, and I show my students on a daily, and I try and instill this this little lick in people. So it's just leaving out the 7th, okay? So I know I'm getting long-winded here, but check it out. It's the same thing we did, basically, but like you leave out the 7th. So if I go... You might be saying, well, it's not a big deal. No, but it's a phrasing tool, so watch this. If I go... And it just works, so let me play around that for a minute here. And there's one reason right there. You leave out that major 7 and that makes you phrase differently. I might not play that lick if I'm not thinking of that. So if I go... Nope. That, so watch. Again, these are all just little phrasing tips, man. You can do whatever the hell you want. I'm just showing you stuff that I use, that I've learned, and that helps me out. So obviously we want to put the 7 in, like a major 7. That's a huge, great sound. These are just little things, so I don't want anybody thinking, you can't play the 7 over that? Of course you can. It's just a phrasing tool, and it gives you, right, this kind of stuff. So that's a lot of fun to do that kind of thing. What else? What else? Oh, like, playing scales on one string. That's a really good phrasing tip, man, an exercise. Like, because you have to play melodic. If you do a scale on one string, you have no choice because you're just going this way. So, like. Resolving on D, so it's hard not to jump to another string, but you get the idea, right? These are all just little tips. So a lot of that magic happens when you are going over the chords. So I don't want to get too crazy off course here today, but this is a cool little exercise that I like to show people as well. Let me get a little more coffee here. Okay, got a gig tonight, doing an acoustic gig here in town. For anybody that gives a shit, I've been in bands my whole life, and I've recently pretty much quit for a while, retired. I was in two pretty popular bands here in town. One of them was my own band that I started and ran and booked, and we were pretty successful, making really good money and doing festivals and private events, and I walked away from that. And my yacht rock tribute band, Catalina Wine Mixer band, I stepped down from that, which is super hard because that's like my favorite genre of music, and I'm just too busy, man, teaching, running a business, doing YouTube stuff. But I'm doing like solo instrumental gigs, but I'm playing with a buddy tonight acoustically, so I know, who cares, right? But I'm just stalling and trying to think what I was going to talk about here. Actually, I know what I was going to talk about. So when you go to like this chord progression. So you're playing the major, the 6 minor, you got the 4 chord, and you could also go to the major. And I'll do a whole nother lesson on this. I'll do probably a 2-parter on this because there's so much I want to show you. And I'm hoping people haven't turned off yet because there's some good stuff coming up still here. So if you're still watching, thank you. But watch this. So now I'm going to play. Million songs right. You play it any kind of direction you want. But so a couple interesting things happen here. When I go to this G chord and the A, I'm going to show you this last thing here. It's an exercise. So if I'm soloing, if I go, let's see here. Those first 2 chords, I'm still just thinking, the major or the minor. Minor pentatonic. But when it goes to this G chord, watch. I can still think of this, but watch what happens. Let's take a look at this G chord. That's the major third. Whenever you play a bar chord, that note with your middle finger is always the major third. So when you play the major scale, watch what happens here. Well, the 6 minor now becomes the major third of that scale. Let's think about that for a second. So the 6th note of D major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just look at the note. Put your middle finger there. You can see that note is the major third of that chord. So if you see that, it's a good landing zone. Okay, now the same thing happens when I go to the D to the A. Watch, here's the 5 chord. I'm gonna go. That's the A. And if it doesn't make sense, that's okay. Just practice the exercise. It's in your exercise. So when I go here, well, the major 7 is now, look, the major third of that chord. You can see these notes. When you see them, it clicks, okay? One more time. D major up to the 6, which is now the third of G major, if you want to think of it like that. Major 7 is now the third of that. So there's a little exercise you can do. You can go like, look at that. Hit the G note. Highlight this. This is for your ear. Now watch this. And resolve it. So it's just a nice little thing of hearing. right at 1-4-5. But you can mark it by this little exercise. So. All right, folks, that was a fun one. So hopefully you guys got something out of that. Major scales, major pentatonics, mixing the the relative minor. There's lots of stuff you can practice. Hope you guys stuck around to the end. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button; it helps me out. Hit the subscribe button. Gotten a few more private students this week. I got a Zoom link below for the for private lessons, online if anybody wants. Once again, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.